Hey everyone, welcome back to the Robust Ramblings podcast, where we explore the minds of the brilliant individuals shaping tomorrow's world. I'm your host, Sergio Jardam, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of an electronic and software engineer with someone who's truly at the forefront of innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Herman Blackie.
So how's it, everyone? This is Robust Ramblings, Gideon here with my boy Sergio.
How's it, everyone? How's it?
And today we are privileged to have a rambling with one of my very closest friends, a good friend of mine who's been mates for many years.
I just met him, but nice to meet you, Herman.
They're kind of close now. And yeah, I know, me and Herman have spoken over the years many times of how we're going to start businesses together one day, of how we want to help uplift the poor through businesses. And he's really got a big desire to learn, a big desire to do research in this space of how businesses are supposed to work, how to grow them, etc. And started a few businesses of his own in the past. So Herman, it's really nice to have you here.
Thanks, peeps. This is very exciting, and I really enjoy doing this podcast and this robust rambling with you guys. And I'm excited to see where this chat may lead.
Yeah. So we're not that prepared in terms of questions, but we're excited to see where it goes. We were just actually having a conversation on how my personal desire for podcasting started a year and a bit ago when me and Herman had a conversation on doing something like this on blockchain technology. So that's where I got my first microphone. This is Herman's microphone.
Yeah, we borrowed it.
Yeah. So no, we're excited to have you here, Herman. Maybe, we can kick it off by you just sharing some of your background, what you're doing at the moment and your own desires to grow in business and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's awesome. In there's that lack of Afrikaans. Anyway, so I have to say, back in 2020, the classic lockdown vibes. That was the time where all of these, from business ideas, from podcasting, and all these things started to emerge in my mind. Because one of the things where I didn't grow up, I think like your previous discussions we had with Alec and with Stefan and so on, where they are entrepreneurs in their blood. They were raised like that.
Their parents were entrepreneurs, and Stefan, he started selling eggs, as a kid, and his dad always funded his entrepreneurial ventures. I love that story. I met his dad this weekend.
Oh, that's cool.
Really cool guy. Yeah, really has a heart for entrepreneurship. But it's true. They come from a different background than we do.
Yeah, exactly. So my parents were like, my father was in education. He worked as a teacher in Hoërskool Janssenville. My mother, she studied like administrative stuff, like how to be a good PA.
And my mom also did the same, typing and those kind of things.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's crazy to see how the world changed, that was something you go study, and now it's just something people assume you can do in any...
Yeah, that looks like a given.
Yeah.
And now we have AI systems that are our personal administrators.
Yeah. And can type quicker than anyone else can.
Yeah, that's freaking wild. And so with my parents not having a business or entrepreneurial mindset, we weren't raised like that. So we just went through the normal motions, like, okay, what are you gonna go and study, maybe get a good job, and the average way, or not the average way, but the most common way of doing life is get a degree, go and work, build up some pension fund, and do the normal stuff. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's something that is enabling when you learn to think entrepreneurial, where you know that it not only empowers yourself, but you can also use that to make a massive impact and to really shape the outcomes of not only your life, but other people's lives and communities. And I think that was always a passion of mine, is how do we get ideas that can actually stick, that you can use to empower communities, or just gain knowledge, understanding, experience to start equipping people, or just to inspire people. Because as I'm sitting here, I'm turning 31 this year, so I'm still very young. Yeah. So I'm not afraid of the big 30s anymore. Now it's like we're in the building phase of a life. We need to start running. All the other old guys are starting to retire. So we need to step up because the rest are getting tired. And so then my whole perspective from 2020 onwards was, how can I start gaining, let's say, some ideas, or start trusting the Lord to generate some ideas, or to inspire me with some ideas that we can start pursuing with regards to business and entrepreneurship. And that is where, in that specific year, we started with our coffee business, where we went from sourcing the coffee beans to roasting them, packaging them, the logistics and stuff like that. And it was fun to learn how the whole supply chain works for coffee. And then our church needed to publish and to distribute some content for our student ministry in Kruispunt. And then we needed to start a podcast. But no one has told us how to do this. No one gave us the ideas or gave us the technology. And then from there on, it really became a passion of me to go and explore, to see what is on the what is available, and how can we use that to empower people, or to coach other people to do the same, or just to inspire them to see what they can come up with. And so that's very awesome. So I really enjoy these type of things.
It's really great. I mean, you are electronic and software engineer at the university, Northwestern University here in Potch. And you're mentioning a few scenarios now where you had to go and learn to do some things which you don't really have experience in. So it was starting the business. It was also how the supply chain works, the logistics, packaging, where to get the beans for the coffee, as well as the podcasting thing. Now, something I know about you is that you're very inquisitive and you like finding ways to do things and testing new things. Now, where do you think that skill of yours comes from? Does it stem from your ability to be excellent in research, or is it something you had to teach yourself over the years just because you have an interest in some of these things?
I think most of these stuff, I think there is a natural curiosity of mine that I love to go and explore. But I know, when I look back at my life, one of the challenges that I had to overcome, and I think it's still a theme of my life, is mostly in certain areas, I was the first guy that was exposed to a problem, and I needed to figure out a way to overcome that. One example was, let's take playing guitar as an example. I wanted to learn guitar, but no one actually taught me. And then the thing is, okay, I didn't have a coach. Now, how do I figure out how to do playing guitar and how to make music? Well, no one was there. I had to figure out, how do we do the chords? How do you make it beautiful? How do we find alternative voicings and stuff like that? And then you're the first one in your family that does this. Okay, and then next, what's the next thing? Okay, cool. So the next thing was, for example, let's say, what's another example? I was the first guy in our family that had to do, or that decided to pursue something other than education and went into engineering. So there was no mentor, no one in my life, no one with a technical background like that. So I had to be the first one to explore that. Then the next one, there's no one in my life that I knew that already started a podcast. So I had to go and explore how does that work.
You inspired us.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So that I have to say, so that curiosity is something I was born with, but I also know it is something that I had to cultivate in my own life, because I would like to solve problems. And the thing is, if you're on the cutting edge, or if you're on the boundary of something, then you need to be that first one to go through that hard work to break that barriers and to start with something, and then you can take other people with you, or to just on-ramp people very quickly.
Yeah. So like, if I can ask, with the whole exploring new avenues and going into different fields and all that, especially you being the first person to do it, how did you feel to do that? Was it daunting? Was it scary? Did you feel
it's nothing like doing something new. It makes you feel very stupid. And one of the things that I had to deal with the whole time is, it's okay to feel incompetent, and it's okay to feel stupid.
Wow.
And that is it's a very awful feeling. And one of the places that really gets me is when I try to make eggs Benedict. Poached eggs and a hollandaise sauce. There's nothing like a stupid egg that can really get me boiling on the inside. Pun intended. Yeah. Anyway, so I have to say that was one of the absolute first things that I have to make peace with, is that feeling of incompetency and feeling stupid, because that's the only way of going forward.
And how did you overcome that mindset? Because I feel like a lot of people out there want to start new things. Like I was telling Gideon the other day, I wanted to do a podcast in COVID days already, like in 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
And I never did because of fear of man. That was my problem. It's always been my problem. Until this year, I'm just like, no, foot down. I know my security. I know my identity. I know all these things. Let's do it. Was it something similar to you or not really?
Yes, for me, overcoming that was one of the things that I decided to do in my life was I have nothing to lose where I am currently. Like literally, if I don't do it, I will be exactly where I am.
Yeah, that's a good way of viewing it, because and you can, I think, mentally, a lot of people see the worst case scenario as a lot worse than it actually is.
Yeah.
So it's not thinking about what would the worst case scenario look like, what can you do to overcome that, or maybe prevent that, and if it did happen, what would you require to get back to where you were. And I think when it comes to these entrepreneurial ventures, in your case, there wasn't a massive, call it a capital input required, like a massive lot of assets you had to buy to try any of these things. You could do it with what you had on hand, which helps overcome that barrier to entry.
And the thing is, if you just start exploring, I think that's the thing. One of the things that I really love is listening to podcasts, listening to books, reading ebooks, audiobooks, and whatever, because there's a lot of people that have already done a lot of things. And the thing is, if you don't have a community of people who are your mentors who actually can help you, let's say with business, with entrepreneurship, with whatever, if you don't have family members or father or a family that helps you with that, there are a lot of mentors out there, and just go and find them.
That's two very important things you just mentioned. So the one is getting content on learning something. So for example, as you mentioned, podcasts, books, and I want to ask a question on that. But the second thing you mentioned was having mentors or a community around you. So maybe let's start with the latter, the community part. So how do you have a business community around you? And if yes, how did you get that? All of us young people want mentors, but we don't really know where to start or what to do to get them.
I would say most of the people in my life, my father-in-law, he works as an accountant, so there's a bit of that, but it's mostly my peers. I would say people like you, Gideon, and one of the other friends, Arno van Wyk, Badger, Rudolf Kriek. So it all started with we are friends and we love to explore. We are adventurous. We would like to see what's out there. We have ideas. We would like to test them. And you went and you started like your Humble,
the online shop. Yeah.
And you started that while you were working at Master Drilling, for example, and you felt like, man, there's a calling on your life for business and how to start with that.
Yeah.
And that prophetic word gave you the permission to start walking in that direction, and you start exploring that. When I find Rudolf Kriek, who was one of our friends that works in ministry, but now he's in Potch Eiendomme, like he also just started. He's like, okay, I have a massive beard, I want to go and buy
true story,
and create some beard oil, because something like Buffelsfontein might be too expensive. But the other thing is, okay, but I can learn to do this because there's a basic recipe that you can follow, and let's start exploring and solve a problem or an issue that you have in your own life, and there might be other people that have that same thing. And so seeing friends around you starting to explore some of these things also inspire you when you see, man, these things make them excited, and you see the possibilities, and you know that there are problems that needs to be solved, there are people that need solutions, and if you can match the solution with the problem, then you have a business idea. And now you can just start exploring that because you have literally nothing to lose, and having these people around you that already start walking it out and just opening your eyes to see and to be aware of what they're doing, that inspires you. And I know when I have some business ideas, I bounced off you. Or when me and Rudolf Kriek have a coffee, then we go and we really chat about these things, and we struggle with these things. But it's lovely to have these people in your life, and I don't see everyone as often as that, but it starts with finding an online mentor, books or whatever, but then the people in your life to just bounce your ideas.
Yeah, that's good. And I think it also helps because, even neither of us, Sergio, between the two of us, were willing to start this podcast alone. But when we came together, there was some momentum behind that. So it actually lowered that barrier to entry, or gave us a
permission
to fail, or a confidence, because what's the worst thing that could happen is we learned how to set up microphones and have a few really interesting, life-giving conversations, and maybe nobody gets to hear them. But in this case, people are actually now getting to hear them.
Because it's world-changing.
Yes, world-changing conversations that we always have, and now people have the opportunity to hear.
Yeah, to listen in, because usually we sit at Dampat at campus and we have these life-changing conversations. And it's life-changing for us, and we really know it's for the rest of the people. So this is very excited, and I really enjoy this. And one of the things is, there's a podcast that I listen to. It is, it's called the 7 Working Genius podcast.
From Patrick
Lencioni. Yeah, that was very good. So he had a discussion on a podcast, but I know he also spoke with Craig Rochelle on the Craig Rochelle Leadership podcast.
Yeah, so Garrett actually brought this up, speaking about the geniuses and Patrick Lencioni as well, because he's a massive fan of Craig Rochelle. So full circle moment.
Yeah, I also love that. And Pat, he opened my eyes specifically on the working geniuses to identify people's giftings.
Yeah.
And some people are visionary people, some are the kind of rally the troops to get stuff going, others are the dreamers, others are the more practical guys that gets into the detail. And the thing is, you need to have those type of people in your life, and you need to make sure you don't have just one of them in your life.
Yeah,
because it can be very discouraging. And an example would be like, let's say you have an idea, and I tend to be more visionary, more dreamy, like massive. I have these huge, massive dreams and ideas, and I don't always think about how would the detail look to actually get this off the leg, to just get this built. I don't know, it would be possible, and there are details, and we can flesh them out after the fact. But I have this vision, and how can I get people behind me? Now, let's say I only have a discerner in my life. I'm a dreamer. Now this guy just keeps showing me all the pitfalls, and now it's discouraging. Now I get to another friend who's massively detail oriented and practical implementation oriented. He doesn't have, let's say, a massive interest in the dreaming stuff because all the details overwhelm him, so then he doesn't just want to do this if he doesn't understand all the details. But now the thing is, I need them because they will show me where the pitfalls are and the practical challenges, but it doesn't have to mean that I have to stop now because they've shown me the pitfalls or the dangers or the practical challenges. But the thing is, the vision is still there, and we can actually do this if we overcome the challenges, if we see the pitfalls. And that's lovely to have people like that around.
Where do you see yourself, Sergio? Are you a dreamer, a doer, a strategist?
A discerner. I would say discerning.
Actually, why would you say discerning?
I say discerning, deep thinker, analyze.
This is just a beard and the eyebrows, man.
I think you deeply analyze everything.
Well, I did study law, so I mean, it could be an aspect, but
nice.
I think both dreamer, discerner. Like, that's something that I've always been praying for. Hey, Lord, listen, just bless me with the ability to discern. So I think you're quite spot on there with discerning. But I also enjoy planning and finding out the nitty-gritty. And Gideon over here, he's the doer. Like he's like,
massive.
Like, when are we doing this? When are we doing this? I'm like, bro, let's plan this thing out. It's like, whoa, no, we need to do. I'm just run that, man.
Our CEO took us to a cliff close to their house in a quarry, and we went for a swim, and we went to the top of the cliff, and then he just gave us this one-liner before jumping off the cliff into the water. We weren't really expecting he was going to jump, but he did. And then as he jumps, he says, an entrepreneur is someone who learns how to build the plane while flying, and that he says while jumping off. So I mean, that's how we operate, is we learn to build the plane as we're doing it. But I agree with Herman. I think you are discerning when you're a business consultant, right? So you see many business opportunities. You see the supply side and the demand side, where many people would focus on one, and you have the ability to connect people when you see those opportunities. I always laugh because you always make the joke, yeah, man, we can sell this, or we can make money out of this, and
yeah,
that's spot on.
Yeah, I think that comes from the shop side, because we used to own a shop. Portuguese,
that.
And then I'm like, yes, fruit and veg, pretty. fruit and veg, fish and chips, chicken and chips, you name it, man. And we were doing really well. But like, there's always an opportunity to grow, to sell, to be, or just develop. So I think it's just
Yes.
fish and chips.
And I have to say, me not coming from an entrepreneurial background, I had to do a lot of work and research to start getting ideas, to start seeing opportunities. Because there's nothing like a good book. Like, I started with Rich Dad Poor Dad.
What was that? I never finished it.
That was really, for me, one of a very lovely book to read. It's a light read, but it really gets you thinking in another way. Like when Mr. Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, Mr. Miyagi, like when he said that an asset is something that makes you money, and we need to start buying assets, and then
Or building them.
Yeah. If it just costs you money, then it's not an asset. But if it generates it, then I'm like, okay, wow, that's cool. Another thing what he said is, rich people doesn't work for money. And when he gave that example where he had to work for his friend's father in the grocery store, and he was so disgusted because his father that's
paying
him nothing. Yeah. And then he said like, okay, but the lesson to learn is, firstly, the rich doesn't work for money. And then he's like, do you want to learn that lesson? And Robert was like, yes. And then the father like took the pennies away. And then he got nothing for his work. But then he started seeing opportunities, like how can we just take all the comic books that they take off the shelves each week and start a library in our basement and charge money for entry to the library.
Yeah, that was a very interesting business opportunity that he saw there, because I wouldn't think that would be an opportunity, to be honest. But I mean, he made something out of that, and I think that's where the entrepreneurial mindset between you two, you see opportunities where the normal person doesn't necessarily see it. But even thinking of that, after you start your first business, I saw this in my own life, but I've heard people say it. After you start the first one, you start seeing more and more opportunities because your brain learns to think in a new way. How would you describe that?
Exactly like that. Like one of the things is, after reading that book, and then I read another book called The Prosperity Paradox. And in this book, The Prosperity Paradox, it is written by Clayton Christensen. He was a professor at Harvard Business School, I think, in the US. But he already passed away a few years ago. But his book, The Prosperity Paradox, was so enriching, because in that specific book, he spoke about different scenarios or different gevalle studies, as it says. Case studies. Yeah. Different case studies where he looked at how market creating innovations turned countries around. He started in the US with Ford, where Henry Ford started to mass produce vehicles. That had a massive impact on the world, and it was a massive challenge to overcome, but he did that. The other one was the Singer sewing machines. That was also a thing that they developed in America, sewing machines, which was cheaper, and they had a weird business model that instead of buying it, that's super expensive, to pay it off, and then more people could afford it.
So like a lay-by type
of thing. And how mass producing these sewing machines started small businesses where each and every Oma can start making clothes or making stuff and start distributing them or whatever. Then the other thing was how Hyundai started with bicycles and bicycle parts, or they actually made bicycle parts to repair bicycles. Then they made their own bicycles because they're the supplier of the parts. But then that went on to start to take the form of this weird tuk-tuk type of vibes, and then they just making it better. But there was an opportunity where they saw, man, the people need to move around and we have bicycles, so let's start with them.
That's actually a good example, because they started with something really small. They started with bicycle parts, so it might not seem like this massive viable business, but it's a way into the market.
Yeah.
And then from there on, they had the opportunity to grow into something more.
Yeah, and then it grew and grew and grew. And another example was in Africa, there was a guy that worked at a British telecommunications company in the UK, and he saw an opportunity that there was no telecommunication networks in the whole of Africa. And he said, I'm going to start this. And everyone thought, you're crazy as mad as a bat. But then he said, well, there's a business opportunity. There's no telecoms there in Africa, so let's start building out this base station and start building out this company. And he had a lot of challenges to overcome, but then afterwards, people like MTN and other companies bought that infrastructure. And now Africa has got a massive telecommunications footprint.
And it's actually interesting, the telecommunications infrastructure is actually also a large catalyst to banking in Africa, because mobile banking is much bigger,
massive,
because it's an unbanked population, and they work with sending airtime to one another. That's a form of currency now, so it's actually amazing, something that person might not even have thought of. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was an enabler.
Yeah, it was an enabler to something more.
And that's why Africa is the leader in mobile banking. Like the quality of mobile banking stuff that we have in comparison with what's in the UK and the US is not comparable, because we have a different type of market in Africa, but there's people that saw these type of opportunities. Now, as I read through this book, and this guy went through case study after case study after case study, and he gave weird business models that is challenging and that you don't think of. And one of the examples in South Africa specifically that really inspired me with ideas, and as you read these things, how your mind is shifted to see these opportunities, is Alan Craig is a businessman in Stellenbosch area, and he's massively involved in the telecoms space. But he started a new company called Fibertime currently, but it was previously called Project Isizwe and the Kayamandi project.
Yeah, really interesting. You'd actually love where this goes.
So what they did was, Alan Nordkreger actually saw his YouTube video where he spoke about what they're doing and how the Prosperity Paradox book actually gave him the idea to do what he's doing. Now, what they did was they went to Stellenbosch in the Kayamandi township, and what they did is they installed fiber to the home for everyone. Every house in the township gets fiber to the home, and they don't pay a cent for the infrastructure that's being installed there. What they found was that, let's say in a square kilometer in Stellenbosch, in the area, there's about 10 to 30 homes, maybe.
Urban area, yeah.
Urban area in Stellenbosch, square kilometer. And let's say they had to invest whatever they had to invest, the capital expenditure to actually put in the infrastructure, and they only serve 10 to 30 homes, for example. That same, for 1 square kilometer in the township, you serve 300 people, okay? For the same capital expenditure. And now, instead of charging people on a monthly basis on a contract, you start charging them day by day for their internet.
Yeah, because something they saw in the townships where people didn't necessarily in that area plan ahead and have a lot of extra disposable cash.
Yeah.
But they've got cash for today.
They got cash for today.
It's technically saying there's a
in township areas, that is a massive movement these days. Is they call it the township or a massive township market, because there's a lot of money in the township areas we're not aware of.
I actually heard about that today. I went to Plato this morning at like 6:30, and then they're like, hey, listen, you must buy a house in Ikageng. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yo, you make so much money. I'm like, but is there money in Ikageng? And they're like, so much money. Like, you'll be surprised on how much money there is there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's no way. And they're like, there's money.
And it's the biggest untapped market in the country.
Yep.
Apart from South African breweries and Coca-Cola, people don't get into the township market. Yep. Many people like Checkers, etc. have tried, but they don't have access to that market. It's too difficult to get in there. I can share some interesting stories on another time how these guys deliver alcohol and stuff in the townships. They work fully on cash. And like, I pay you cash afterward. Like, you go and deliver my booze,
my dope,
and after you've delivered it, I pay you cash.
But that's
full on. I mean, it's
high risk.
Yeah, very high risk. But these guys respect one another. They don't steal one another's money. Like, all the stuff that we see as
threats, as challenges.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. So maybe just finish the story.
Yeah. Before we will ramble off the side. So what Alan Craig and these guys did is they actually went and they partnered with a company called Hulacoin, and Hulacoin is a blockchain-based tokenized system.
Crypto token.
Yeah, it's a crypto token, or it's a utility token.
Utility token.
Yeah, a utility token.
Yeah,
that's the more technical correct term. So what they did was they charged for the internet. It's a time-based billing approach. So they gave you uncapped internet, 100 megs per second for 5 rand a day. because people in the township know they need internet for today. They don't know if they need internet for tomorrow. They need it today. So you just go to your local Sparta shop or wherever your local VulaCoin distributor is. You go there, you give your R5, they give you a token, a voucher, whatever. You load it onto your VulaCoin wallet. And in your home, you have your Wi-Fi router. So you connect to your Wi-Fi router. A pop-up is sign in with your VulaCoin stuff. You just use your number of VulaCoin you have for internet. Boom, you have internet. And
24 hours.
for 24 hours, uncapped, whatever.
Automated through smart contract.
Yeah,
Everything set up.
yeah, it's South Africa, Stellenbosch, Sky Monday. Yeah, it's insane what these guys did. And Alan Craig on his LinkedIn profile like 2 weeks ago, he posted a sort of a financial breakdown as to see how many money you can make in the township for 500 a day, given the customer client base, worst case scenario and best case. And the worst case scenario beat the best case almost in the urban areas.
What's this guy's name?
Alan Craig.
So just going to follow him on LinkedIn so we can get him on Robust Ramblings.
Yeah, and Alan, not Craig.
Craig.
Junior.
There we go. He is telecom entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Alan.
Fiber time, yeah. Oh, you're following?
Yeah.
Nice.
Put notifications on.
Send him a message by yourself. We can interview him.
Yeah, I'll ask him and chat about Fiber Time and what they're doing.
Yeah, that's...
And that would be so awesome to actually hear what he's saying. But anyway, so he did an analysis on his LinkedIn page to see just how much money there is to make. But the thing is, it was just crazy to see how these people think differently. And the thing is, if you just spend the time to go and read, to investigate, to pick up on these books, these podcasts, whatever, then you get ideas. You start seeing the opportunities. You start seeing opportunity to make an impact. And the thing is, you don't have to go and act on it immediately. You don't have to be afraid like, oh man, someone's going to steal my idea and whatever. Like one of the podcasts on Diary of a CEO, there was a discussion with a businessman, and he said, if someone steals your idea and execute it, then well done, go and praise them, because you didn't have the ability to go and execute.
Oh wow,
That's insane.
that's good.
I actually heard from Busi. I don't know if you guys know that guy, Busi Temborn Yakul.
I think so.
Busi was a very well African or South African businessman, and he says so many people want to execute ideas, but they shove an NDA down your throat right away.
Yeah.
And he's like, how do you know I haven't heard this concept already?
Yeah.
And I've already got enough money to do it.
Yeah.
So just be transparent.
Yeah. I think the entrepreneurship market is a lot more collaborative than people think.
Yeah. I think people are very stingy with ideas,
Yeah.
and they're like, there's no way. I can't partner with anyone. And I was actually listening to an awesome podcast this morning by Alex Promosi. I don't know if you guys know who that is. But he was talking about partnership is a lot better than doing everything alone,
That's very good.
because like just monetary value, instead of losing 100%, you'll lose 50%.
Yeah.
And or instead of losing 50%, you lose 35% or whatever.
And as an entrepreneur, you are probably more pioneering in your personality, and you don't want to end up with a majority stake in a project that you're going to have to maintain, because that's going to cost you time that you actually would probably want to spend investing in another project. So that's something I think is valuable to think of.
Exactly. And so I have to say, like, listen to me, not coming from an entrepreneurial background, nothing, but just reading these things, it really inspires you. Like the other day, when me and Gideon, we had a discussion with regards to all the carbon credits, the renewable energy certificate,
The REC market.
the REC market and stuff like that. And the thing is, when you have all the platforms already in place to start generating these renewable energy certificates,
It's much like carbon credits, just a different type of commodity, but you basically, for every megawatt hour of green electricity that you produce or generate, you can trade in that data to get a certificate, which can be used to voluntarily offset 1 ton of carbon emissions that you've used.
yeah, so companies buy these certificates to look good on their ESG
Yeah.
stuff.
To say they're carbon neutral. They're not actually carbon neutral, they just buy thousands of these.
Certificates.
Same with Tesla. Tesla says they're carbon neutral. Tesla actually buys millions of these things.
And Apple the same.
Yeah.
And then the idea was like, okay, but there's a massive business opportunity then to get these data and to sell some of these certificates. And the thing is, with everyone in South African context with load shedding, there's starting to become a massive opportunity there because everyone is deploying solar left and right, and solar is just sitting on the rooftops, the data is just sitting in their inverters, and no one knows what to do with it.
Yeah. So can I'll quickly break your brain, right? So there's a company in George that I'm going to see if I can get the CEO on, or one of the managers on at some stage. But so their company specializes in solar solutions, and what they do is they then take the solar solutions that they build to the townships on a similar model to what that project is in the Vulacoin guys do, and then they sell the electricity to these guys. So they generate electricity. The township houses can be load shedding free. You buy the electricity with your USSD codes. They've got a router set up already, infrastructures in place. Now these guys currently have a product in place or are busy with a donation project where you can donate your renewable energy data. Now why this thing is valuable is for a small scale user like ourselves that has renewable energy production capabilities or inverters or whatever, solar panels, it's not financially viable to actually try and produce RECs because the value of the REC is not high enough that it'll be profitable for you. But if you can get enough people, small scale users for whom it's not financially viable, you have gigawatts of electricity in South Africa that's home solar electricity. I'm not speaking about solar farms and this type of stuff. I'm speaking about home
commercial homes.
Each of which in their own rights would not be profitable enough to produce these RECs and sell them, but together collectively they can make a massive difference.
Economies of scale.
So what these guys are now doing is, if you can donate your data, then they sell the RECs from your data to pay for electricity for guys in townships. So they're putting more infrastructure in place, growing out that business model for them, it's like their almost want to say their tithes and offerings of
community
service project that they have as a business to try and make an impact. And they've got the craziest stories that we've heard about that people aren't. You'd maybe think someone would steal a solar panel in the township, but they don't. They look after it because for them it's electricity. The illegal power gangs that were in some of the townships, the locals wanted them gone, but they didn't have an alternative. After the alternative was put in place, the locals actually sent those guys to jail. It's the craziest stories if you hear them, but it's this untapped market that these guys are seeing, and they're getting access to that market. So it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
And that's the thing in that book, the Prosperity Paradox book. That's what Clayton Christensen, the writer, is aiming towards, is to see where there are challenges. How can you come up with a market creating innovation? Because selling REC or that renewable energy certificates, that's a new market. You created that market. It leads to some innovation. You have to be smart with regards to your new business model, but there's an opportunity now, and that brings transformation to a community, which then helps to alleviate or to get rid of all the corruption taking place in the townships. And specifically in this book, also it says that corruption is just a means through which people tend to be corrupt because they would like to have that feeling of my life is going somewhere. Like, I would like to see my children get to a better school. Okay, there's no economic means in my community to get higher income, so how can I get extra money? Well, if I am corrupt, I can get a little more money. But I would like to see my kid go to a better school. Yes, I know we have the big fishes that tend to be very corrupt and steal on big scale, but the average guy that is corrupt just have this internal drive to just have that sense of my life is getting somewhere. And if you present them with an alternative to get that same feeling or get that same sense of my life is getting somewhere, there's actually progress being made, then corruption would be out of the way. And in this book specifically, the guy showed us that what happened in Nigeria when new companies started, and they developed 2-minute noodle type of things, and no one was actually very excited to start buying these 2-minute noodles because it looked like worms. But as the uptake in Nigeria for these specific noodles became all the more, people tend to buy more and more and more, then the same company had to buy had to build the infrastructure to actually distribute their noodles. They had to build the water plants to produce these things. They had to build the electricity plants to start powering everything. They tend to have more and more factories. They employ people. They started their own schools, their own training programs to get people skilled up, and they changed so many people's lives just by starting to sell these noodles. And all these things are so interesting, and it's so inspiring to see what happens if you just get a cool idea, you run with it. It might be different, it might be challenging. You need your discerners with you in the room, you need your practical guys with you, but you also need your visionary people. And that's, again, get some inspiration from books and podcasts, get the people around you, the community, and just start exploring these things, and be patient. And yeah.
So I wanna touch on something here. We've had a conversation of this regarding this over the last few times we've seen one another, is creating one of those communities, creating business communities. So either where do you find one, or how do you start your own one? I know you've got a big passion for this. I know you've been spending many hours listening to podcasts, reading up, watching YouTube videos, and you're a wealth of knowledge on this topic. Would you mind sharing a bit of your heart and maybe some of the learnings of creating these communities?
And these days, one of the books I really love to read is Donald Miller's book called Coach Builder. And in this specific book, Donald Miller, his business is called Business Made Simple, and he wrote a few other books like Building Your Story Brand, Business Made Simple, How to Grow Your Small Business, and then his new one is Coach Builder. And man, that guy is so inspiring. One of the first things is he said that each one of us has some skill, have knowledge, have a passion. And you can use that to create like a coaching business or a consulting business. And coaching means you just help people that have the same problems to help them overcome their problems. And one of the first things is he said, like, imagine, let's take this example. You are someone who really loves trail running. You've spent endless hours researching the gear, the type of shoes, which camelback backpack to buy, which vest and whatever. You know the tracks, you know the gear, you know everything. But there's a lot of people that would really love to do that, but they don't know where to start. Okay, but now the thing is, let's just invite people to a roundtable discussion or a roundtable gathering. Like, hey, I have this passion for trail running. Please join me. We can have a 60-minute like a discussion. I can tell you how amazing trail running is, and after that I invite you to my small group gathering, in which each week we get together and we have a small session in which I take you through, let's say, the type of gear, how to train, how to practice, how to have whatever you need. And then to start establishing that type of communities. And the thing is, just start with what is your passion, and then figure out who else has got that same type of passion, and just gather them around the table. And one of the other things I thought about was, let's say, podcasts. So I spent some time figuring out how to start a podcast, but there's a lot of other people who also like to start a podcast. Okay, so let me host like a 60-minute workshop, book out Toru, whatever, invite 10 people who would like to join for the workshop, ask them 200 Rand if you're passionate about starting a podcast. Okay, I can tell you how to start a podcast, I can give you all the do's and don'ts, and then you can go and start doing that. But the thing is, a lot of people still got insecurities after that. And now the next invitation would be, okay, but I have a small business group in which each week a bunch of people gather who also have got podcasts, and we can learn from one another. We can start having these discussions. We can figure things out.
So it's like a closed group.
A closed group,
paid for access type of
thing. And then you invite those people with a monthly subscription to come sit with you around the table, and you discuss the challenges you have with your podcast. Where to host, where not, what's the content type, okay, does your mics work well or not, okay, I see after my first podcast, man, the audio is a bit weird, I don't know what to do, okay, cool, but here is some tips and tricks. And these are the type of things that you only learn through experience. But the thing is, a lot of people hate struggling and hate feeling stupid and incompetent. Okay, I've decided to start overcoming that feeling, so I would be the one to figure that out and to work through those feelings, but other people would rather pay to let those feelings go away. And now, okay, let's have the small group community in which we meet, and I have a 3-month program in which I invite you in, and after this 3 months I have a new free webinar or whatever for the next group of people who would like to do this, record that, distribute that, invite the rest into my small group community for the next 3 months, and we can have a business community or whatever. And there is a thing to just start doing that, to just share your skills or your experience, and to learn from one another.
So you're touching on community a lot. And I think for like from my point, I think community is really vital, really important as well for someone that wants to start a business or something brand new. I'm assuming that community is a big factor on how you do business and how you make decisions as well. You don't make decisions by yourself. Is that something you live by, community? Just because I've heard community quite a lot now.
Yeah, what I really love to do is I don't always trust my first instincts on my own. So I tend to bounce it with my people.
Why is that though? Why don't you trust your first gut feeling? Because a lot of people say like, hey, trust your gut, just run with it. Why don't you trust your gut?
I think I have a lot of blind spots.
All right, that's bold.
And
maturity.
Yeah, because I know I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And I love to get people's inputs, but I know what I don't know if it is let's say a flaw in my character where sometimes I would like to get people's approval of what I'm doing so that I feel good about my idea, about myself. So it's about that insecurity where I sometimes lean towards people's approval of my idea. But so that can be the negative of that. But also if I manage to navigate that negative in my character, I know, man, I have this idea. Let me hear what the discerner says. Let me hear what the detailed guy says. Let me hear what he says, because they might see something that I don't. And so then I just know that is my approach. I have a gut feeling. I try to go for it, do the market research or do the research, bounce it with some friends that also got the experience, and to see. And then to pray about it, because sometimes everyone can show you some of the blind spots and everything, and then after that I know, man, okay, God has really inspired me to run with this thing, and let's see what we're going to do. But the thing is that I try to live by in my life is also not to make decisions based on fear, and to let fear be the thing that prohibits me from doing something. And to know, okay, Lord, I have a fear of stepping into this. Okay, but let's deal with the fear. Why do I have a fear? Okay, the fear has got no actual, there's nothing behind it. It's just there to make me afraid or insecurity. Okay, let's get it out of the way. Okay, what does the community say? Okay, what does the research say? Okay, let me just try it, because if I don't try it, I have nothing to lose. I will be just where I am. Only I have to gain, or maybe do some money. But in this case, I don't have a lot to invest, so I don't do so much.
Yeah, I think something that I've heard now is part of that discerning component is being wise with what you take on and what not to take on. So in your case, you pray about what to do and what not to do, because saying yes to something probably means saying no to something else, so that you can give yourself fully to something. And that was the reason why we didn't start the podcast a year ago, because we didn't have the capacity to do that, and you didn't want to do it half-heartedly. I think that's a wise thing.
Yeah, because the thing is, my heart is I really would like to help people, or to inspire people to get their own ideas, their own business ideas, and to see how I can champion them to run with it. Because if they succeed as entrepreneurs, the whole community will flourish. And I think one of the things is in one of the prophets, either Isaiah, Jeremiah, I can't remember exactly where in the scripture that is, but it's where the Lord told the Israelites to go, and when they live in Babylon, to go and to build homes, to go and marry, to start families, to care for their city.
Yeah, for the people who took them captive.
Yeah, to actually go and to be good for Babel, and to work there, to build those houses there, to do business there, to marry, to give to marriage. And that was one of the really inspiring things to see how God's outlook is for us as His people, to go and to bring life where we are. And I think specifically in South Africa, with all the poverty, the load shedding, the bad rand to USD conversion rate and everything like that, yeah, there's a lot of challenges, but there's a lot of opportunity. And if we can help people to see what they have and what's in their hand, like when God said Moses, like, okay, Moses, what do you have in your hand? Okay, I have a stick. And then God used the stick to through all the miracles. I'm like, okay, let me help people see what they have in their hands, to help inspire them to see their ideas, and to see how can we motivate and challenge them to actually run with this, because if they flourish and prosper, the whole community will prosper. Then they would have more income and wealth to generate and to spend here in our communities and our towns. That would mean, man, let's fix the potholes, then let's fix the water infrastructure. Let's see what we can build, which programs do we start, and how can we alleviate poverty. But it starts with some ideas in business and entrepreneurship, and how can we just cultivate this way of thinking in our town. And that's why I'm reading all of these things, to get the ideas, to bounce it with people and to inspire them, and then after my PhD to start running with my own.
I don't know if this is going to be a little bit negative, but do you think communities or people these days are more self-focused than actual community focused? Because what I've actually realized is a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs out there, they created something to serve the community, like Ford, like Volkswagen as well. Like there's a scary background to Volkswagen and how it started and all that, but the main heart was to serve the people. Do you think in society these days, I know what I think, but from someone that's a lot more successful than I am, would you say that these people are very self-centered, very me? Yeah, that's and that's the reason why they're not succeeding. Or you get that random person that does succeed, obviously. But what's your take on that?
I think, since I'm coming from the perspective of church ministry, being involved in a lot of ministry, you see the power of the body and the role everyone can play, and I think that is why my initial thought is that communities and coming together is where the power lies, and to get people behind a specific vision. But I know these days people tend to be a lot of very selfish and fearful and greedy. Mine, my success, and I'm too afraid to share. And you see that where everyone is building all their higher walls, put up all the barbed wire, put up all the hangings, the devil's fork and stuff like that. People are afraid, and I don't know why they are afraid. Well, maybe because of crime and all these type of things, but yeah, it's sad to see where people retract into their own spaces and just sit there on their own. And I just think that a lot of people out there haven't had a lovely community experience yet.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of them are afraid to do something in community. Yeah, so
I think, just maybe in closing, Herman, one of the things you mentioned now was, if I can really word it, doing what your hand finds to do. What do you have? You used the example of Moses with his staff, thinking of Jesus feeding the 5,000. He's like, okay, what do you have? No, we've got 5 loaves and 2 fish. So that's what we use. How can you help someone that has no idea where to start recognize the staff or the bread or the fish or whatever the case may be that they have in their hands to turn into something that might be a business opportunity?
Yeah, that's a tough question. But I know in my own life what I had to do is I just had to say yes to a lot of things I'm not familiar with. Say yes for all the random opportunities, the random things that comes to mind, because that will, one of the things that you might be exposed to might draw you in, even though if you're not really sure what your competencies are, what your passions are, where your interests lie. One of the things that strangely hooked my interest was when Gideon, when you started to build your kitchen. You bought your house, you renovated the living room and the kitchen area, and you invited me last year to just come and help with some of the
No, I was forced to, because I almost lost part of my hand. So, I needed someone to help me pick up the big cupboards.
Yeah, to build them and to put them together.
Sergio also helped me put together my kitchen. He had the basin. He helped me with the basin.
Yeah.
My plumber guys.
He's a plumber.
Yeah. And you see, I don't have experience building cupboards. Nothing. And I would never have known if I would have a passion to renovate kitchens or whatever. But a friend invited you and like, okay, yeah, let's just do it. And I'm too afraid to just drill in the screws a bit too much. And Gideon's like, no, it's like, just just done with it. I'm like, oh wow, we're gonna ruin the wood and whatever. Yeah, quick and easy. And I'm like, no, let's see how can we do it proper. But then it would take too much time. And then what Gideon also said is we just have to decide what is good enough. And when it's good enough, then just move on. But anyway, then we started to build these cupboards and putting it together and stuff like that. And then from after that, I started to see what people do when they build kitchens. I started to figure out, oh, here people are a bit sneaky. They put up dual cupboards or dual wood panels on the sides to hide some of the marks. I'm like, I would never have thought like if you put in the shelf and you just bzz it with all the screws. And then I always figured out like, but how did they hide them? Oh, they just put up another slab of wood to the side.
Yeah, it's the curse of the guy who puts everything together that knows where all the issues are. Like the general population would miss it, but this is skew or
how you hide it. Yeah, let's just get another piece of wood and just literally put it on the side. But you see, like being exposed to something as small as that immediately opened your eyes to start seeing different type of things and start seeing different possibilities. And then it got me thinking, oh wow, but is there a company in South Africa where I can just go online and just order my, let's say, the cutting list? I would like to build a kitchen. Here I buy 2 cupboards, get the cutting list, and you deliver the cutting list to their home with all the raw materials. I don't know, is there something like that, a company that literally just deliver them? But if there are, then it's amazing. But I just started to thinking, wow, there's a business idea. People are too afraid to renovate their own kitchens. They don't know how. Okay, DIY is very daunting, but what if I just give you that plan, that puzzle? I give you the raw materials, here's the screws and everything. I deliver it to your home in raw bits and pieces with the puzzle map, and put it together. I'm like, wow, that can
back.
Yeah, I'm like, that can be a cool idea.
IKEA kitchen cupboard.
Yeah. And whatever, but you see, just being exposed and saying yes to come and help you immediately gave me some ideas. Because if you have problems and challenges to overcome and that you experience in your own life, and the question is, if I can solve this problem in my own life, then maybe other people have the same type of problem. And then to see how you can identify those problems to solve if you experience them firsthand, and that usually leads to some business ideas.
So use the opportunities that come across your way. So Sergio brought the opportunity to start this podcast. We wanted to call it Brewcast, but there was some other guy somewhere in the world who had the same name. But we went beat us to it. But I mean, the opportunity was created by someone. Someone was the visionary, the pioneer behind that, and then we could actually run with it. And in Herman, your case, I had to learn from someone how to build my cupboards, and then it sparked something in you. So Sergio, maybe, in closing, how would you say people can put themselves in more scenarios or give themselves more opportunities to be exposed to stuff like this?
I think it just comes down to community as well. But in the same light, not saying no to something that scares you. I think that's the very first reaction or thought. It's like, hey, Sergio, do you want to come fix my sink? No. It's like, hey, listen, we both don't know. we fail together, Yeah. But I think no one ever learns without failing, like you said earlier, and being prepared to fail, and that's fine. Like I could never do silicone until I did it at my own house, and then I stuffed up very bad and silicone everywhere. I was like, oh, hectic. And then I watched some guy on YouTube doing it, and I'm like, hey, I can do that. And I'm like, okay, I should have just done this, and then done. I think it's just about trying.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, no, I mean, this has been a privilege. Thank you so much, Herman, for sharing your insights, Sergio.
Thank you.
My co-host, it's lekker.
Thank you, co-host.
It's been a real privilege. Thank you so much for putting out the time, and we look forward to having more of these ramblings in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, peeps.
Thanks for being here today. Your support is invaluable. Please share our podcast with others who might enjoy it. Stay tuned for more great discussions with entrepreneurs and leaders. Follow us on TikTok for extra content. Until then, stay curious and take care. Thanks.